Well, good Sunday evening, everybody, and welcome to Around the Layout Podcast Live, where railroad photographers come to tell their story. My name is Ray Arnott, the host of Around the Layout Podcast, and joining me is the executive producer of Around the Layout Podcast, Paul Cassar. Paul, good to see you.
How are you, Ray?
You look like you're in very familiar.
Yeah, well,
It
you know,
looks.
I had my office refurbished, and I thought make it look like it is the most southern office of the Around the Layout podcast. So we're covering two hemispheres, and then don't forget, there's also the Florida office. So starting to migrate, and yeah,
Three
it's all good.
locations throughout the world, and I have been to one, and pretty soon I'm going to be to the other. We're counting down. I think it's like 3 weeks now.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks today. Well, it's Monday here in Sydney, so in my Monday evening, I'll be at the airport picking you up.
Yeah, that's going to be a great time, and looking forward to it, getting all the logistics put together. We were just going through some of the stuff that I'm bringing. When I say some, there's a lot of stuff going to Sydney, Australia, and a lot to manage. So it's going to be an absolute blast to get down under and enjoy what's going to be an amazing week in the New South Wales area. Because we can't just say Sydney. We're going to be going up and down the coast. We're going to see a whole bunch of layouts. We're going to make great use of the time together, and that's where our next lives are going to be too. So kind of starting our live for March, but we'll talk about two lives for April. We will go live on it'll be Friday night, 9:00. I believe it's look right over here. Look at this. I actually keep a schedule. If I can get my cursor over there, it'll be Friday, April 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go live from the Sydney RPM. It'll be 11:00 a.m. on Saturday when we go live over there. And then the next day, you and I get to hang out at the Riverbelt line, which is right outside your door there. So we'll do a live right from Paul's house on what will be Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern here in the United States, 11:00 at Paul's house. And we'll show the operations of the Riverbelt line, and we'll recap the Sydney RPM. We'll talk about everything that's happened that week and everything else, and take questions and comments live. So we'll hang out both on Friday and Saturday night here in the United States from Sydney, Australia. So hope everybody puts that on their calendar and joins us then. It'll be an absolute blast.
Really looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to having you over and showing you the hospitality of Sydney, Australia, and as you said, New South Wales. I know Justin's got some fantastic layouts lined up for you to see and experience. So it'll be good.
Really it's going to be an absolute great time, and it's going to be a trip of a lifetime for sure. So looking forward to that. But before we jet set off to Down Under, we've got a great Around the Layout podcast live lined up tonight. We're going to have renowned photographer Ken Karlewicz on to share 40 years of trackside captures. He's been photographing up and down the Hudson River and throughout the Northeast area, and he's going to share his photos and all the stories that go behind them and much more. So looking forward to having Ken here on the show. I'm glad everybody here joining us. Thank you so much for coming by on a Sunday evening. And I know quite a few folks coming from the Valley Forge RPM. Hope you had a great time there as well. We have some business to take care of first, and that is with our operating crew members, our monthly giveaway to them. Our operating crew members are our Patreon-driven membership, where folks pay as little as $3 a month to support the podcast, keep us on the rails, and keep us free of those annoying commercials you hear on other podcasts. And what we do for them is not only do they get an exclusive sticker, they get updates on upcoming shows when I remember to do it, and the awesome Tuesday night and Thursday morning chats that we've been having here. We call them Thursday morning, but it's Thursday evening in Australia. And we've been having some really great chats about weathering and some input for some really great modelers during those chats. It's not completely off the rails. It's a casual conversation, but a lot of great information shared. So a lot of great benefits for $3 a month. And the other benefit they get is a chance to win something each month. And for the month of March, we've got a great prize coming up for them, thanks to our friends at Athearn. And we're going to make sure that we do this screen correctly. There it is. This is a Athearn Genesis ACF 4600 covered hopper, Western Pacific. And Paul, you'd have the XF8 out already, wouldn't you? You'd be patching that blue and Riverbelt stuff on it, wouldn't you?
Most likely.
Yeah. So, well, it's great because it covers a grade, 1975 and up.
Yeah.
So if you're a 70s modeler, this fits. If you're an 80s modeler, weather it heavy. If you're a 90s, 2000s, or whatever, patch it up, have some fun with it. This is going to be a great car. And from the Athearn Genesis line, it's going to be a quality car. So thank you to our friends at Athearn. You can check their website out at athearn.com. Thank you so much to the folks there supporting Around the Layout Podcast Live and our operating crew. We certainly appreciate their support. And thank you to everybody who's going to be on the wheel tonight. We have 241 folks going around the wheel and with a chance to win tonight's prize. So without further ado, we are going to get the wheel up. Paul, you ready to find out who's going to win this car?
Yeah, well, if I'm in there, so I'd love it.
Here's the problem. The suitcase is already full. So if you do win, this is going to be a little bit of tricky, but we'll see if we can figure it out. But let's give this big wheel a spin, and let's see who out of 241 awesome supporters of our podcast are going to win. And I'm sorry, it's not you. It's John Gordillo. John, congratulations to you. Yeah, the winner of our Athearn Genesis HO scale Western Pacific ACF 4600 covered hopper. So congratulations, John. I'll be getting in touch with you. If you get ahead of it, email us at aroundthelayout@gmail.com, and we will get me your address. We'll get this car shipped out to you. So thank you, John. And thank you to everybody who supports Around the Layout podcast.
And I'd just say, Ray, that the 2 chat sessions we have every week is well worth the $3 just for that. And I encourage some more of the Aussies and international people and from the US to join us on a Thursday morning, Thursday evening in Australia, because it's a good chat. And of course, the US one on a Wednesday, I really enjoy. What's a Tuesday night, isn't it, Ray?
It's Tuesday night here. So not to confuse. So in the United States, it's Tuesday night and Thursday morning. In Australia, it's Wednesday mid-afternoon and Thursday evenings. So
really, they're both really worth joining and participating in.
Yeah, we share a lot there. And if you're waiting for your personal invitation to join the operating crew chat, you already got it. It was on the back side of the envelope when you got your sticker. It had the link there. If you haven't got that and you're having trouble finding it, just reach out to us. We'll help you out. Aroundthelayout@gmail.com. We'll get you all the instructions on how to join the chat if you're an operating crew member. And if you're not, hey, $3 a month, head to aroundthelayout.com/crew, and you'll find the information on how to join the Around the Layout podcast operating crew. Again, thank you so much to everybody who supports the podcast through your contributions. And thank you for listening. And thank you again for tuning in here on a Sunday night. We got an exciting topic to get to here. So, Paul, we're going to drop you back in the green room. Paul's handling the comments and a little bit of crowd control. So Paul will slip back there and ready to come on screen. We're going to take Paul down and we're going to bring in our guest, Mr. Ken Karlewicz. Ken, great to see you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. And thanks for supporting this presentation this evening.
Awesome stuff. Well, Ken, one thing we're going to have you do is sit still because your chair is also trying to join the chat tonight. We can hear it squeaking, so we'll try to hold Ken perfectly still, and which is going to be hard to do. I've seen you before. I've seen you try to get Ken to hold still for about 30 seconds. Let's see if you can do that. That's going to be a challenge. But great that you joined us. You're a guy who I've seen so much of your photography and throughout social media, and then of course in publication and a multitude of places. And then let's start with this fun story. The Ken Karlewicz encounter that Ken Karlewicz didn't even know he encountered me with. We were all out on, it was October. We were all out at was it Mine Dock Park?
Mine Dock.
Yeah. So they had a cruise ship parked there, but we had a little bit of a rail fan kind of photography thing with the podcast, and Greg Gay and company were all out there to hang out and take photos. And we had a whole bunch of other folks. If I start naming names, I'm going to forget somebody and I'll be in trouble. So I'm not going to name anybody, but great group of folks out there capturing photographs. And we're on the dock, and I think it was a northbound went by. And then all of a sudden a boat ripped by, and the waves started shaking the dock. And then come to find out, who was it, Ken?
It was you guys on the dock, and it was me in the boat.
Yeah, it was Ken ripping up, chasing that northbound. So awesome stuff. We're like, wow, that guy's moving. It was Ken and a buddy of yours. Yeah, getting in position and chasing. And it was a beautiful day there in October. It was gorgeous weather. So I don't blame you. It was a great day to go rail fanning. And then the vantage point that you had from the water was certainly excellent as well.
And how ironic, there's not a single image from that morning in this presentation. But
now there you go.
Hey, it's just meant to be, I guess.
Well, paint the image of us sitting on the dock and the dock bouncing up and down. That was Ken going by. So
there was no 5 mile an hour sign. So I just went according to track speed.
There you go. You sure were moving. So awesome stuff and very cool. Really looking forward to diving into this with you. We've been chatting about this and this presentation, and I know you've got such a large collection of photographs, and it'd be great to be able to sit here and share all of them, but you've boiled them down to even a good stack of photos, and you're going to walk us through this awesome presentation, and we'll take some questions along the way. And I'll probably pop in with some questions as well, because, you know, my enjoyment with rail photography, I think rail photography has an awesome tie-in with rail, with model railroading as well. And so we'll tie that in at the end and we'll talk about that. But without further ado, let's get that presentation up. And I think we're going to have to hit one more. We may get Paul on. I have to switch to one thing. Yep, there's Paul. So, and there's Ken. He's back again. And we have Ken's presentation showing here on the screen. So we should be ready to go. Go ahead, Ken, take it away.
Okay. This is actually, this picture here, I had reservations about using this because it's just a picture that's been done so many times over the decades. And I first actually experienced the view from this rock ledge here with the late Robert Malinowski and probably Bob Collins back when their famous pine tree was used to frame the shot. This actually was made not from the earth, not from the ground, but actually this is a drone shot where I actually flew in here from Mine Dock. But I love the fact that the leader is an ex-Conrail GP 40-2. The unit behind it is an ex-Reading ex-D&H GP 39-2. And that has been the pair that's been roaming the river line for the past several weeks with the local train, which usually runs down on Friday. So I think it looks all right in the last light of day here. So let's get rolling.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is a trestle on the CSX River Sub. This is the bridge that probably forged my most powerful impressions on me as a young kid. The Minnesciongo Creek crosses below this trestle, and the abutment that you see off to the right, I must have climbed up and down the side of that thing, not the concrete, but the cinders that run down alongside of it, you know, several thousand times as a young kid. But I moved to this area when I was 5, and I remember the last of New York Central and Penn Central, of course, rolling back and forth. And every time we'd be out to play in the park, there'd be some kind of trains going by. So this is probably a very powerful starting point for the origins of my interest in, my serious interest in becoming a trainaholic, basically. Now, wow. Excuse me. This picture here is another powerful image because I pulled into the Bear Mountain area one day. There was a bunch of guys standing by the riverbank. I asked what was going on. They said the special is coming and it's Amtrak. I looked around. There was nowhere to stand. So being a young guy, being pretty physical, and being in the window cleaning business, I got out my bow saw out of the truck and climbed up the tree and started hacking out the branches. And I captured this shot. And someone told me if you shoot slides and get a good shot and send it to Tom Nemeth, you might get it in a magazine. Well, I just happened to have like probably one of my first 2 rolls of slides, and bingo, send it to Tom. It got published in the next issue. Well, about a couple of weeks later, I had traveled up to see the Batten Kill on the recommendation of my late mentor, Dick Herbert, and wandered over to see about the Vermont Railway local coming down from Rutland. And wouldn't you know, this GP18 801 was fresh out of the shop, and I found another vantage point up above. So although it might look like a drone shot, this one is actually my second picture published from a tree. So I really favor angles, whether they're really low or up above, and as opposed to straight on. But I remember as this guy went across the bridge that I could see his flannel and just see his elbow on the windowsill. And I was like, that's a cool shot. And it turned out to be a keeper. So needless to say, I was hooked. I was hooked on upstate New York. I was hooked on what I had seen of Vermont at that time, which was very minimal. So I started making trips to Vermont and to the Batten Kill. And I just love this northbound with the Jeep leading with those hoppers on the back. Almost looks like a little VTR coal train going along, and the pile of coal there beside that classic structure, which actually is made as an HO scale model. So this is a very famous place, Crosby Coal in Danby, Vermont. This is up near Skelly Road up in East Greenwich, and 4116 is running light over to the junction. They're gonna switch the mill, put their train together, and they're gonna head south with yours truly in pursuit. And needless to say, the herd is long gone, and the farm lays silent today. Okay, this is likely that same day. Here's a 4116 in a very unique paint where the BKRR is stenciled on the nose. I hadn't learned yet to include the farm that's back here, which is in most people's photographs. I was just looking at this frozen river through here, and glad that the nose poked out of the shadows for me for a bit. But a bitter cold afternoon, just the way I like it, crisp and clear. 605, I was excited to get the 4116. I had seen the 605. You never knew what you were going to get running on the trains, but this is an image from the new book that's just released that I produced with my good friend Otto Vondrak, who did the layout, design, and the production of it. It's a coffee table book, which I self-published. This is an image from that book, and this is in a place called Frog Alley in Shushan. And this little girl here turned around to look at me just as the train was getting next to the crossing, and I said, "Don't look at me, just wave to the train." And all the kids waved, made the picture. And
yeah, so let's stop just for a quick second and talk about, it would have been so easy for you to have just shot the train, but boy, you have a story here, don't you? I mean, by including the kids, the waving, the connection, there's kind of a reminiscence to this, right? Of somebody who looks at this and remembers when they may have been one of those kids on the bike waving to a train going by. There's certainly a passionate story to be told here.
Yeah, and it's great. The clouds just lend an ambiance to it and a mood. And I think what's captured in this picture is what I would call a sense of place. Okay.
Right.
This is what it was like in Shushin, at Frog Alley. And the funny part about it is these kids probably range in age from, 7 or 8 up to maybe that little boy is 12. But think it's only 40 years ago. So most of these guys are probably still in the area, believe it or not.
Yeah, hope so.
This was a great moment. Excuse me. I am also in the business of cleaning ice jams, ice dams, ice jams, same thing. You get a significant snowfall with brutally cold temperatures. Icicles form immediately. So my eye was keyed right in on this porch. These guys, there's a guy actually behind the tree over here. They just finished clearing the crossing. There's a shovel there. And this is a combination flanger freight. And when they stopped, I ran across and got up here on the porch, and I just loved this little indicator of the depth of the fresh snow, but the way that the cross light was hitting those icicles, and even this one on the post here, just gave it such depth and clarity that it was a brutally cold winter in Washington County, New York.
Absolutely.
So in my adventures with my buddy George Poval, who I traveled quite a bit with, we decided to head up to shoot the CP. We were up to Newport, Vermont, and caught the train heading out of Newport. I just love this quartet rolling past the herd here. I believe this might be Newport Center. And we made a point to go after alcos and things that we felt could be on the endangered species list, but we just wanted to get away from Conrail. We wanted to shoot, we wanted to get variety, we wanted to shoot color, we wanted to shoot deep snow. And, even at that time, this is probably back late 80s, winters were still pretty real, sort of like what we had this winter. But we just wanted that variety. We wanted to get into some of that, really those remote areas where the train and the countryside were in sort of a symbiotic relationship. You're not seeing a lot of ballast. You're not seeing a high-speed main line. You're just seeing the local trundling down the line. This was another event where we actually caught the Lamoille Valley with, running a flanger freight. You got the old wooden flanger, 2 hoppers, the little farm scenes, just the fence. It's something that you would create actually if you were modeling, Vermont or upstate New York. The kind of detail, even this little sign here, right, that you would know to include in your modeling. And I would say that my connection to real railroads has definitely enabled me to create scenes, textures, and shading and weathering that I learned from seeing firsthand out along these real railroads. This is the CP on the Linden sub. This is train RS1 with a couple of RS18s rolling south down the Wells River with the day's interchange traffic. And now I come back to my area where I'm probably 25 minutes from home at this point, right across the river from Mine Dock. And I hiked in here to shoot the FL9s. And I guess I just got lucky, and I was probably motor driving, and this turbo came flying out from behind the bushes.
Right.
Just boop, 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 boop. And then one of them worked.
Yep.
I couldn't have planned that at all, especially unless you had the radar, like they have the app now these days that tells you what train is coming from which direction.
Yeah.
But a classic scene along the eastern bank. Now, this is an interesting photo here. Friend of mine today, my friend Oren, says, "Oh, you should take that picture out." And I said, "Yeah, but it's got a story behind it." And Ray says he wants to hear the backstories in some of these things. So yeah, it's just a southbound. This is coming down along West Shore Road. But if you look to the right, I am above the pole line. And there were no drones then. So what I did was I had my window cleaning ladders in the back of my station wagon at the time, took out a couple of pieces of ladder, and window cleaning ladders go together in sections. So I erected a ladder that was sufficient to get up here, hooked my arm over either the wire or part of the ladder, and knew this guy was coming south. And this would be these are the predecessors of the drone photos, and you can tell that from a very early point in my photography, I was looking for elevation.
By the way, kids, don't try this at home. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, kids, that was a crazy time, and you definitely don't want to be putting any ladders near any railroad tracks, without question.
Right.
Here comes the southbound out of Brattleboro with a nice, quintet of Jeeps. Go ahead.
Now, there's two things I want to say about this photo. I mean, obviously, them smoking up is amazing, right? And you get such a beautiful shot with the mountains behind it, and you got some reflection in the water. There's just a lot to look at right here. The two things I want to, one is, I mentioned it many times before. I tell photographers that are out there right now, keep shooting, because you are capturing somebody's golden era. And perhaps when you were taking this, you were like, oh, it would have been nice if they were, predecessor CV units or whatever. But now you've captured somebody else's golden era. Now they're looking back, and somebody is going to see this photograph and go, wow, I loved it when it was the red and blue units. And so you're always capturing something else. The other thing I wanted to bring up quickly, now you talked about, you've got the river line, you've got the commuter line on the eastern shore of the Hudson River, pretty busy, you get some opportunities. But when you go here to a short line, and this is obviously a beautiful scene, are you out there scouting for these spots? Do you have like a mental list in your head? Like, I have the spot, now I just have to wait for a train. Is there some kind of planning going on in your mind to get these captures?
Yeah, generally I was probably with my friend George. We probably camped out somewhere up in Vermont, maybe White River or whatever. We had our topographical maps, in the car. George is in the co-pilot seat. I'm driving, and he's like, "All right, if you go down this road, it's a dirt road. You're going to make a right, and then the pond is going to be on the left." And he's navigating like you would have your nav system up. He's telling me which roads to take that are going to take us closest to the tracks. But we had looked at the map the night before. We knew this Phil was going to be there. And if this guy's going to be leaving in the morning, and, back then we'd call the dispatcher and we'd find out what train was running, what time was the crew on duty, where were they going. And for the most part, that was before 9/11, and people would give you a lot of information. So you could get a lineup, if you were kind and patient with the dispatchers, and they were always busy. But we'd, check in around 4:00 in the morning from the hotel room, and we'd beeline to the place where we needed to be right in front of the action.
Wow.
This is a northbound. I think this is, I don't know, it's been 40 years since I've been up here. Maybe the Georgia High Bridge, up in Vermont, but classic, set of Jeeps crossing the river in a hazy early morning sun.
Long hood forward. Yeah.
It just
a lot of stuff right here, right? That Southern Pacific boxcar that's on the pin. So many awesome things right in this one shot. Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. The sky isn't perfect, but then my mentor at the time, Dick Herbert, says you gotta go up and you gotta check out the P&W. I don't know if I was with him this day. I don't think so, but we went up once or twice together, and I believe I may have been alone this day. Beautiful small lagoon setting, and the train is leaving, coming back south. In either late morning. At the time it was probably late morning. You scurry down, you can see where the shot is. You get down there and you cross through a couple of trees, and sure enough, here he comes. Boom, boom, boom. Jump in the car, and you're not seeing these things around anymore. This is all part of the history.
Right.
Here you go, TV 301, which is an American President's Line train. This was the day that the NYS&W train was outlawed after a blizzard in Campbell Hall all day. And I was up here with the late Dewey McElwee. We were standing, rubbing elbows up on the bridge when this thing came through, and then we headed back to Campbell Hall as the sun broke out to photograph that F unit. The 6370 was on that train that sat at Campbell Hall in beautiful snow, a beautiful fresh fallen snow all day. I'm gonna keep rolling because my buddy Rich Hover, shout out to Rich, says you got about 30 seconds per picture. As long as you don't talk too much, you'll be okay.
We're fine. You keep rolling. We're having a good time. Keep going. There's a lot here. Keep going.
Here's a trio of what are these? GP. I am not known for being the technical guy. I'm more into the aesthetics. I think these are GP40s, right? 3 fans and 4 axles. There you go. GP40s, Conrail, crossing over Staruka. Late nice summer afternoon. Beautiful clouds and a little piece of branch hanging over. What could be better?
Yep, framed up. Very nice.
So I think this is SEOI blasting out of the Fort Montgomery Tunnel, and I am positioned on the south bank of Popolopen Brook as these guys come roaring out of the tunnel, and just love the way that late afternoon sun is just skimming sideways across this guy's face right here. Just the engineer, just glowing beautifully in that late. It looks like springtime, late spring light.
Absolutely.
Now you saw the picture with the Amtrak train, which was my, one of my first successful pictures, and probably one of my first few rolls of slides. But of course, once you find a spot and you know it works and you know the light, this was a NYS&W Sealand SLN4. It was a detour train. Notice the F45 here in the middle with the ex-Burlington Northern SD45 leading. I think actually the late Robert F. Collins was down on Iona Island shooting the same train, but you can't go wrong with this scene. It's just a classic, scene on the river line.
Absolutely. What a lash up too. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah, to get this the typical Susie Q paint, trailing there with the BN colors up front, and and that winter scene really talks about Bear Mountain, doesn't it? Tells the story. Yeah.
Now, another friend suggested that I edit this picture out because it was, I guess he said, I'm not going to mention any names now, but he says, well, there's really not much going on. It's, just kind of ordinary. And I'm like, well, it's ordinary, except that it's a trio of U-boats come swinging around the bend in beautiful light. And I love that low sun. I love how the sun accentuates the symmetry of those articulated cars, right? Again, American President's Line train, which is gone, U-boats gone, Conrail, but this is the first time anybody had photographed this big curve at Tompkins Cove, because again, no drones. Everybody goes here now and wants to shoot it with a drone, but I climbed the tree and made the shot. My friend Glenn Ward, shout out to Glenn Ward, was the dispatcher at Elizabethport, and I used to call Glenn in the middle of the afternoon, and he'd say, well, where do you want to go? If you go, you're going to Bear Mountain again, Ken? Yep. All right, well, if you get up there, we got, SEOI is coming, or this train is coming. Be up there at this time. That was it. And I would go, and sure enough, I'd be there 15 minutes, and here came the train. So little planning, and you're in business. Now, these guys are all this. I think this might be the 208 bridge in Maybrook. Excuse me if I'm incorrect, but these guys are all shooting the train. And when I turned over to look to see what they were doing, this is what they were doing. So the pandemonium was there in Orange County at that time, and this is probably late 80s.
You can tell by the clothes and the look. That is definitely the late 80s.
Yeah, the cameras too. I mean, look at
The
this,
cameras
setup,
and
right?
yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
Nightcore mat, and the evidence is all there. They look like they all have similar cameras. Notice those silver camera bodies right in the front, and then the black lens. Just really states the era for sure.
Oh boy.
This was lucky. I'm shooting with a long lens, obviously. I'm not in the tunnel. I'm just way at the end of it, shooting through. But that late spring, look at the buds on those trees and the mountain across the river, just glowing with that last bit of sun. But again, there's no sun on the engine, but that ambient light just kissing the nose of that FL9. This one's for you, Otto. Otto loves FL9s.
There you go. That's beautiful.
Hiked in here to Roahook for the turbos. Man, I miss those turbos. Just flying along the Hudson line, kicking up the powder. It's just, whew. And this little thing here is just a beautiful layout detail for the modelers.
Oh, for sure.
Campbell Hall, probably, I would say probably 87. I think these guys stopped probably making either a set out or a pickup. My friend Ben Martin would probably know. I'm shouting out the whole universe tonight.
Now, you're usually a tree climber, but this one's definitely lower. You got low for this one.
Yeah. There was no need to climb because then you wouldn't get, I wanted it framed in here and, it worked. But this wasn't the time to be up. So I think the elevation on this one sort of worked out. But, again, Century, Campbell Hall. Wow. I developed a wonderful relationship with the NYS&W, and it started with my interacting with the dispatchers, Billy Mall and Jack Armstrong and a bunch of these guys that were always so helpful to me. I came to find out later that the late Walter Rich, had seen some of my pictures. They used a couple of them on the annual reports, and Walter was like a fan. He was a rail fan, but he became a fan of Ken Karlewicz and my efforts, and I guess he saw what I was trying to do. So I would get a call from the dispatcher, hey, they're running the spreader, out of Butler this afternoon, or they're hauling stone, out of Limecrest, and so at some point, Tom Nemeth says, why don't you do it? We're going to do a book on the Susquehanna. We got all this stuff. And, we're going to make a book. We're going to take all your pictures and make a except, okay, Tom, you need to do this. And, whatever's going on, you need to keep shooting and get it. And I had I've been self-employed for 47 years. I've had my business. And I was always like, I'd call up the customers. Hey, Mrs. Rosenzweig, yeah, I think it's going to rain tomorrow. I don't think it's a good day to clean. She'd be like, but the sky is really blue, Ken. I'm like, I'd rather not start a job and have to, okay, whatever you think. Yeah, because the train is running. I got to go. Call you tomorrow. We'll reschedule. Out the door I went. Boom. And I think this might be Butler. Again, Billy Mall would tell me, LASB is running, and what engine is on it? Okay, it's the 101. Okay, they're going to work, up there. Going to be, taking the empties out for the paper. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were loads. Or they're going to be running down to Lackawaxen with so many cars. Okay, hour and a half up to Lackawaxen. Scoot up along the Lackawaxen River, and it's not a fancy picture. Buddy of mine said to me today, this really isn't a Ken Karlewicz photo, he says. Okay. And I went through this thing with my pal, and I'm like, you got to just tell me what to get rid of. He's like, I would lose this one. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the LASB, So, look, not every picture is going to be, you got to have contrast. That's what sets the pictures apart and makes the really great pictures look better. It's like your wardrobe. You can't look fancy all the time. I believe this picture might have made it onto one of the covers of the annual reports, but here's the Pope Mobile, as my dear friend, the late Mike Del Vecchio says, They're running the Pope Mobile, KK. Got to get out there. You going out to shoot the Pope Mobile? Yeah, are you? Yep, let's go. I'll meet you up in Vernon. Boom. And I think, where is this? I don't know. Woodruff's Gap, maybe. But I don't believe this scene is doable anymore. But, you know, that freshly out-shopped F-45 with the Pope Mobile, and Walter's probably sitting here in the back. Bless his heart. So here's a ballast train, running along Route 23 near Stockholm. They had that leased Santa Fe unit. And again, like those rusty colors. I mean, there was a time when, you know, I would say, this is past peak. I'm not going out. I remember one time we called the Lamoille Valley and they're like, well, it's really just the harvest colors. They're running the train today, but I'm like, how's the colors? Are they peak? No, I would say it's a good 2 weeks past peak. All right, we're not coming. And now deeply regret not going. Now, here's the story right here, okay?
Yeah.
So I was told that they were going to line this up with the freshly out-shopped 3636 leading at a little ferry to go to Binghamton. Okay, so he's leaving Little Ferry at this time. So you start calculating, when's the sun going to be up high enough? And you don't want to doodle around. You want to be at Staruka. Well, when I got to Staruka, there was probably 8 or 10 guys standing at the base of this tree where I am perched right now. And I looked around, there's like nowhere to even get in there. Excuse me, I just want to go up there. You going up there? Okay, watch out. Ken's going up the tree. So the guy yells up to me, hey, he goes, how's the view up there? I go, freaking awesome. So the train, if you look at this light back here, this whole scene was like dungy. It was just horribly miserable light. And I set the camera to full bright, 500, 5.6, because I'm looking behind me. How fast is the cloud moving? I'm like, either it's going to be lit or it's not going to be worth anything anyway. Fresh snow. Look at this tree right here. These things are all laced up with powder on them, on the branches that hadn't even melted off. And all of a sudden, as the train got to about here, the sun went, and this guy, Devin Lawton, right here in the cab by the window, he runs over. He's like, Karlewicz is in the tree. Goes over, sticks his face up against the window, and I'm like,
yeah.
Just this ended up being a center spread at rail pace.
Beautiful.
Thank you to Tom Neiman. Thank you, Tom. Took good care of me for all these years, 40 years. Guy still acknowledges my stuff and gives me my due. I'm very thankful. Now, I love people. I love photographing people. I always had a great rapport with all the crews, Jim Farrell, all these guys, Keith Strobel, this is Keith, Tony Vitale. You know, like they knew I was out there all the time, and they'd always give you a friendly boom, boom, on the horn. And I remember this was after it's still snowing, but this was like a blizzard up at Maybrook, and they're gonna do the pull by move, right? So the train comes up, and they're gonna pull it past the switch. The power is gonna grab on the other end and pull it back onto the basically like almost Y the train. But look at these smiles. It's like, Yep, it's just Ken, and he's here to document us. This guy's like, well, I don't know this guy, but they seem to be okay with him. So yeah, go ahead, take the picture. And this guy's like, wait a minute, maybe I should be sorry, too late. Next.
Well, that's one thing too, is, you know, you capture the whole thing. I mean, we talk about equipment, and the equipment changes, and the road names change, but the people change too, and the people come and go. And it's always great to be able to grab that as well. That's a big part of people's lives. It's their job, their livelihood, their passion. And to be able to capture that part of that history is certainly phenomenal as well.
I think it's a privilege and an honor to photograph. First of all, I love watching anybody do their job. When they're really good at their job, I'll just be enthralled and just sit there and just drink it in all day long. It's like some people be like, oh, they're just a worker. No, I want to watch this guy do his work in a masterful way, because that's how my crew works, and that's how I've always worked. I take pride in how I do things, and my name is on it. And these guys, they do. It's just a great thing to watch great railroaders or great anybody do their job in a prideful way. Here's NTV4, SLN4 blasting through some fresh powder at near Deposit. I think behind me is probably Route 17 going over the track. But I just love the symmetry of all these little rivets and all these little white dots everywhere, you know, in the pole line. Just a vortex of energy. Sort
Absolutely.
of a little bit like me, if you will, right?
Yeah. Well, you can tell that line that, you know, the one on the left has been run on. You see you have the snow so fresh it hasn't even been on the opposite side. There's still nothing run on it. It's really cool. You know, it's just after a storm kind of feeling. Very cool.
Yeah, and this little glint of light on the rail there. Now, the NYS&W, you know, when they became the designated operator for the D&H, they had this quartet of B-40s, right? And this train got doodled around. We thought it was going to outlaw. I'm going to say I was probably with my friend George Poval, and this train was dogging, and we're like, the light's going to go down. And we hiked in here at Nineveh, and he probably had his 300, and I had my 200. And we're like hiding in the shadows as this train just crawled up the grade. And we made numerous trips up to the D&H. That was probably, I never really photographed the Albany and Susquehanna division, even though I modeled that on my HO scale layout. I never chased a train. The first train that I chased on the Albany and Susquehanna was the Susquehanna train. And it's probably the same train. Let me see something here.
Yep, same leader.
Same one, right? Same leader. And they were in a 2, 4, 6, 8 configuration. Here I climbed the signal mast at Cobleskill again to get, you know, and I didn't have anything fancy for a camera, my Minolta X7000 or whatever, but I just knew I wanted to see the whole thing. And I was used to seeing things from that perspective, from being on rooftops cleaning skylights, or up, you know, 3 floors cleaning a window, where the whole view just opens, right? So
and how fun, Ken, that I also have a picture of that locomotive right here as it is in the PW 4004.
Oh,
so there it
nice.
Is. Yeah.
Interesting. That's there's its part of its lineage, right?
That's right.
Now, again, Mike Del Vecchio says, KK, you gotta get out there. They're running the M&E, you know, Alcos, 17, 18, 16. You know, they're gonna cross Moodna in the afternoon, blah, blah, blah. Now, there's a whole herd of, you know, photographers down in the field, in the meadow here. I believe I took this picture from a big pine tree that sits, you know, on the other side of the road from the field where everybody goes to shoot. I love this. It says, I love you. But, you know, I was going to leave this one out today, but my buddy Orrin says, that's historic. So
yeah,
there
sure
it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one too. I mean, there you go. I love you. What does it say? Ginger. You know, this is when you know, they were helping. They were getting help, you know, with the motive power, because they were running so many trains. You never knew what you were going to see showing up. Could be a trio of Chessie Jeeps. It could be a Boston and Maine GP40, you know, leader coming down. There was always, and you know, Cooperstown would always tell me what was the power on the train. And you know, these guys were held, you know, probably for a commuter train at Port Jervis, and but the light just kept getting better, so I just hung out in the tick-infested field of Salisbury Mills, New York.
That's paid off. Oh, here's another one.
Now, I'm not taking anybody to Pennsylvania, and this is my only shot from down there, but this is just a cool shot. You know, a trio of pups crossing Lickety Split Creek, or Sandy Lick Creek, I think is the official name. I call it Lickety Split Creek, but Ron Flannery would probably, tar me for mislabeling it. But sorry, Ron. But anyway, here they are in their red, white, and blue scheme, and I just thought, wow, what a shame that this little railroad disappeared before I had time to really give it its due. But anyway, this is a cool shot. Now, get divorced, did a bunch of rail fanning, went through a divorce, and winded up at the International Center of Photography studying documentary photography. I am no longer a trained photographer, okay? For 25 years, I did not photograph trains. So all the stuff that I've accumulated is minus 25 years. And I went into the streets of Haverstraw where I grew up, and this is Rolly on his all chrome bicycle. Rolly was polishing his bike with Windex. I had just bought my new 20 millimeter Nikon lens and asked him if I could photograph him on his bike. He wheeled it out in the street, climbed on it, and said, "Yo, dog, take the shot." Okay, look at it. Okay, so this was during a photo class. I taught kids for 15 years, and I'm actually, I got one kid holding the reflector. I got another kid holding the flash, throwing the flash into the reflector, sidelighting him a little bit. And this is what I did for 20 years. I just photographed people. This is actually a crop photo from a Rolleiflex picture. And this is Jackie with her little son, Anthony. And she's probably 16 when I took this picture. She comes to all my photography exhibitions, brings her son, and they've been around over the years. But this is the town. I grew up on the west side of town, on the other side of the tracks. But actually, this neighborhood is predominantly Black and Latino. And my wife, Priscilla, is Dominican. And interestingly enough, I always thought while photographing this town that my life would be like a movie, and I would meet this beautiful, Latina, and that would be my story, and I would get married and live happily after. And after the project finished, I ended up meeting this beautiful Dominican lady one day at the street fair, and then she's my wife. So I get the jackpot. This is Daisy. Now check this out. Now, this is Daisy, who worked at the La Isla Buffet, which was a Spanish food restaurant. She was leaving from work one day, and I said, "Daisy, un foto, por favor." "Okay, está bien." "Okay, ahora." Right there, I told her, go by the corner. She just went over and leaned on the wall. Click. This guy's walking by. He gives me a quick glance. You can see the shutter was slow. But watch how the influence of doing this leads to this. This is retired Delaware and Hudson conductor, my dear friend Bill Bibby. Hello, Bill in Leona. This is my dear friend Bill. We were friends on the phone for over 2 years before I drove to North Creek to meet him. And he took me down to North Creek to the terminal where he worked, where he turned, RS3s and slept in the RS3s as a kid. So check this out. Here's Bill. It's probably a year and a half ago. This is the feed shed. Bill would unload boxcars at 17. He would unload the boxcar of 100-pound bags. The whole boxcar was full. Him and his other worker would unload this car, 40-foot boxcar, onto a truck, bring the truck here, unload it into this. Then, as the feed store up on the hill on Main Street needed them, they would load them back onto the truck, and bring them back up the hill. I just talked to him about this the other day. He said, "Kenny," he said, "guess what?" He says, the feed shed fell down last week. It's gone.
Wow. And
he wants me to send him another copy of this photo. So that's why it's in the show, because I just found it and worked on it, and I'm going to make him up a print and send it to him. But here he is at the turntable where he used to turn RS3s, and clean them, and prepare them for the run up to the mines at Tahawus. And this
Well,
guy is a true Adirondack. Okay, back to color, back to Orange County, New York. This is the, I love short lines. I love the slow pace. I love the ease of the chase. And this is coming into Campbell Hall. This is train CH1, crossing the little, what do you call it, a little causeway. I believe he's probably going out up to the lumber place up at Montgomery, because this is not an empty. So he's going out through Campbell Hall. They also occasionally still run this Jeep. This is during a snowstorm, obviously, and he's also heading, they run push-pull style up there. So he is a trailing unit going up, but I just thought this was cool. I love this old texture in here.
As you continue to roll through the photographs here, Ken, I got to ask you. You talked about, you know, when you got your divorce and you kind of found yourself doing practically no rail photography and went, you know, kind of into street photography and those kinds of things, documentary photography. Obviously, it must have felt. I mean, you were doing a lot of this prior to that, so you kind of had a sense of it when you were doing the rail photography before. But that must have really helped enhance your mind of composition when it came to railroad and translating the two, I would imagine, right?
I'm honestly not sure exactly what the question is. Are you asking me if doing all this rail photography before taking the break helped with the compositions that I would return to later, or did they help with the people compositions?
Well, how the training that you went through
Yep.
for street photography, documentary photography, that kind of thing, how did that change your rail photography moving forward?
I think it made me, because I find a train to be like an inanimate object. So the people photography had me wanting to see, capture, and understand more of the human dimension, like just this slight. And I also learned a lot about body language and gesture and nuance from understanding what was that tilt of the head or that look in the eye or that mannerism that told the story. And I remember my photo one teacher told me, Colette Fournier told me that if you want to be a great photographer, you have to study the work of great photographers. So I studied, Dorothea Lange and Robert Frank and Walker Evans and Gene Richards and Shelby Lee Adams, who photographed in Appalachia. And Shelby was a great teacher of mine, and he prepared me to go into places that other people wouldn't go. So one of the things that I have always been since probably the age of, 12, probably 15 for sure, is being, and not in a braggadocious way, but just matter of fact is I never was afraid to go anywhere. I've always been kind of a fearless person, and not in an arrogant way, but just like I'm secure with me. So I'm cool. And here's what I could tell any photographer, that if you're cool with you, other people are going to get that vibe. It's like a horse. But if you're uneasy with you and you're not sure why you're there, I'm going to keep rolling. And you're not sure why you're there, the subject's not sure, and they're uneasy and they don't like it. Okay.
Right.
So as far as getting permission into places, I did a lot of that when in my early days of even going up to shoot the Batten Kill, where I had to ask the farmer up at Dawn Lane if it was okay to hike up onto the hillside overlooking the pasture, and then ended up photographing the farmer in the doorway of the old farmhouse. And then once I returned to Rockland, I wanted to find those kinds of people from a century ago and photograph them. So I spent 2 years actually photographing the last farmers in Rockland County, where I grew up. Here's a drone shot. This is one of my early drone shots a few summers back of the NYSW SU-99. I have a multitude of angles of this farm, which is very photogenic, but the light was just spectacular. Dixie, who lives in the house, Dixie Baird, Dixie, who lives over here in the old farmhouse, and Alan, member of her family. This is Wawayanda Creek. And I mean, this is the former Lehigh and Hudson River. I have been so inspired by this segment of the line between Campbell Hall and Sparta because Jim Boyd and I were friends, and I know how many pictures Jim Boyd made here, but how much he loved this railroad, the LNHR. So, I look at his book, and I've always been inspired to go back. You go to Warwick, go to Sugarloaf, and you'll see some stuff of that coming up. Here's another one where I just don't want a 3/4 lit picture. Yeah, this picture back here, it's beautiful, but it's almost, it's nice. NYS&W used it on the cover of their calendar, or the NYS&W Historical Society and the railroad used it. But this one's more dramatic. I love this little shape of this human in here. And I love the way that the lines sort of arc away from each other. And I just love that glint of light on the track. And of course, the backlighting showing all that exhaust. Here's another image. I can't see the counter on the photo. So Rich Over, if you could text me what number we're at, that would be helpful. Here you go. Newfoundland Station. I did a really cool photo shoot with my wife, Priscilla, here, where she's sitting on the side of the thing here on a suitcase looking all sad like she missed the train. So this has become a favorite place for me. And I love this prop here, but I'll tell you the truth. I very rarely use my Nikon kit, right? I love my drone. It's the first tool I grab when I'm going to do a shot. It's just by nature. I want that expansive view. Even though I'm thinking about buying a Nikon mirrorless just for the really low light stuff.
Do you still climb a tree for old time's sake with a drone? Do you still get your tree got you? Do you still have the hacksaw on or the brush?
Oh yeah,
in there?
So I got the bow saw right in the back seat.
Bow saw. Yeah, there you go.
Used it the other day. Sometimes I use it as like not a walking stick, but sometimes I'll use it to hike down an embankment. I just used it yesterday to dig into the side of the hill, just so if I slip on the muddy terrain, that I'm sort of, tied in here. Now check this out. This is, am I doing okay? Am I getting too excited, Ray?
Keep coming.
All right.
I love the fact that, in my mind, always shoot, with the sun to your back. But this is opposite of that. This throws, it's kind of funny. And I think that's photography, right? Learn all the rules, then learn how to break them.
Learn to know to break them.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing with this. This is a wildfire, sky, right? And I'm like, I want to capture that sky. So I need to do it before maybe the clouds come and obscure it. But I thought, I took the lead unit coming through here, but I also just loved these two nose to nose with the road to nowhere and the little farm, distribution center or whatever it is, a packing house or something, and the way the light is just accentuating these lines. And I was just glad that somebody in a white SUV didn't come down and park at the crossing, right?
Yeah.
All right, here we are. It's really miserable. I don't know, ISO 4 million, and put on the wide lens to get this. I wanted this geometry. I wanted this, and I wanted I didn't want a blurry picture, and I just wanted this line coming out of here. It was so dark, and this picture needed a lot of work, but again, Baird's Farm and the late Jim Boyd caught Lehigh and Hudson River Alcos, those powder blue C420s going through here repeatedly, and I had the honor and pleasure of standing up in the meadow up here with him to shoot the weekend turn over to Warwick, from Sparta, the Sparta turn they called it. So this is it's a special place for me because of that. And Dixie Baird is always so gracious. She's just a sweetheart. She always just so friendly. Got something, she's always anxious to talk to you and to see all the trained people.
Awesome.
Okay, here we are on the Batten Kill now. We'll get into later Batten Kill. And here's Bill Tabor. Now, you want to hear? Now, this makes me think about a lot of things. And it makes me think about the cost of railroading, right? And especially now with all this stuff going on with fuel prices. And it makes me extra sensitive to the short line railroad that, very often operates on, fairly tight constraints. But Bill is sweeping out the the flangeways here at this crossing, and he's patching. He's got buckets of blacktop in these cans, in these spike buckets, and they're going to patch the crossing because too many people are upset that the crossing is too bumpy. But the state is going to there's going to be a program, and I don't want to give away too many secrets, but they're going to do a rehab. The Batenkill is going to do a rehab on this crossing and the one just north of here. They're going to put a concrete crossing in, but it could be just long enough to where the locals are not going to be happy to wait another few months. So here's Bill. Here's Perkins he's helping out Bill Tabor. He's not, a formal employee, but he's been helping Bill for years. And they always say the Batenkill is the railroad that gets by on love, because everybody loves the Batenkill and they just love to help Bill. So here's the guys with the tarp, basically these are buckets of recycled blacktop, and they've come up with a method of reusing it. And there's Bill right there, the oldest guy in the crew. Well, maybe Perk is, but there's Bill. These things are probably 150 pounds each. I surely wasn't. I was carrying the camera.
Yeah. And that was probably feeling heavy, right?
Bill, I've known Bill Tabor for 40 plus years. And I want to tell you, I've known him since 85. And I will tell you, one reason that he and I have always connected is because he's a worker and I'm a worker. And I would come up here after shoveling. I came up here once to the railroad after shoveling roofs for 30 days straight with my guys. Came up here, and the first thing I did was I had like 15 shovels in the back of my truck. The train got to Eagle Bridge with the flanger, and the guys are starting to dig. I'm like, here, let me move over, grab the shovel out of the back of my truck, and they all stood there and just were like, no joke, Ken, you just go to it. And I was just
nice
digging like a woodchuck, man.
Awesome.
All right, here, this thing is good. This little 3021 is gone, back up to the Saratoga, Corinth, and Hudson. But it was such a sweet thing having this equipment on the railroad. It's a rainy, misty kind of afternoon in the fall. Hazy light coming through. Excuse me. And this is taken on private property. So Bill would like people to respect that property. And I fortunately have a very nice rapport with him and a clearance to go into places. And there's Hal at the helm, coming in, bringing in a train probably up from Eagle Bridge. Here you go, well cars on the Batenkill, and there's Bill Tabor riding the back of the caboose, doing a shove into Eagle Bridge Yard. And what they're going to do is they're going to end up bringing a train up that's going to have, I believe, this guy will be in the middle as like a mid-train helper for the trip up to the junction.
Very nice.
Now, this is Marcy Armstrong's house right here. Her kids, her family, and I have been friends for many, many years. This is Shushan. And I say that you cannot take a bad photo in Shushan, New York, period. And this is basically the essence. This is the splendor of Washington County and the splendor of the hamlet of Shushan, which I think is just this little wisp of smoke coming out of this, what is this? The 5012. I had a mental block. Sorry. The RS-36, but it's so reminiscent of like the Washington branch, right? And guys who are listening, the Batenkill book features 50 photographers with photographs taken over almost 60 years, capturing all of this stuff that you're going to see in these pictures with like chop nose RS3s and C420s and all kinds of D&H power. Here you go, July 4th weekend. I'm staying with my wife up in Vermont. I'm like, babe, could we just take a ride over and see what Bill and the guys are doing? There's Caleb Lindquist up on the roof. There's Bill Tabor. I call this picture WTF. The locomotive is like hemorrhaging oil, right? There's oil just coming all over the place, leaking, going all over. And I don't know who Bill's calling, but it's like maybe the picture should be called Houston. Houston, come in. I think we have a problem. And Caleb's just like, I don't know. But there's Ken taking a picture.
Awesome.
Now, this picture, this is the only time that 4 Alcos departed Eagle Bridge in the last 44 years. And this is the 5015 right here, which is an original Delaware and Hudson unit. Here's the switcher, which is not actually a D&H engine. There's the 5012, another engine that's not official, but it's in daily use on the Batenkill. And there's an original D&H engine again. But here they all are, departing Eagle Bridge, passing the Dawn Farm, and crossing, about to cross the Hoosick River. You know, just again, experimenting with flight. I had some hip surgery probably just before COVID. I was doing a little photo essay called Rail Fanning on Crutches, and I felt so compromised, and I felt like a prisoner that I no longer had the freedom to like run and climb and jump, that I bought the drone so that I would not have to run and jump and climb into places anymore, that I could actually pull up, get my flying camera out. And one day I'm going to do an essay, a story called If Jimbo Could Fly, because I know Jim Boyd would be on fire if I could hand him a controller and say, go ahead, Jim, take her up for a ride. And, you know, Mike Del Vecchio and I were planning to go fly drones together before he passed. And that's the one regret I have, is that I didn't have that opportunity. But I know Jim Boyd would have, and Mike would have just loved flying around up here. And, you know, I'm going to give a shout out to Mark Luxman too, because Mark Luxman was the first guy, I got to give him credit, to photograph the Batenkill with a drone. And I never wanted to copy any of his photos. But I was so inspired by the concept of seeing this landscape from an elevated perspective. So thank you, Mark, for being a pioneer in the drone photography. You deserve that acknowledgement.
When you got the drone, and as we go through these photos, I know you get a story to tell here, but when you got the drone, did you find it to be like learning over again with composition? I mean, you had your tree climbing experience, so you knew what it was like to get up, but you know, was there a composition learning curve?
The learning curve was in learning how to time the shot to not blow the shot. And this is a pointer for anybody who's new with a drone, is what I learned was the train, you got a shot set up, the train's going to come across the bridge. You touch the button on the monitor to focus at the point you want to focus on. If you let 2 minutes go by and the train comes out across the bridge and you go press the button, that drone forgot what you wanted to focus on, and it goes and it hesitates like an SLR when it goes and picture's gone. So I've learned not so much about the composition issue, because I made a commitment early on. I knew a guy who said that he never really uses his drone because he was always afraid that if he learned the drone, he would forget the SLR. And I think, no, I think it, especially at this stage in life, I'm 67, right? I'm going to be 70 in a few years. I don't know how many hillsides I'm going to be running up, but I still do my fair share. But I think it's exciting to have learned how to use a new tool. And my wife has said it, and my friend Rich Hover said it today also, is, I reinvented myself as a photographer with the drone. So I don't copy anybody. I did a story for Otto years ago in Railfan magazine called Footprints in the Wind. Those are my footprints. Somebody wants to come after me, and they're inspired, and they want to, I hope they don't go out this next week and copy the same picture that I did. Go out and create something original. I like flying into a place that nobody has done, right? And done is a relative term, but I like to go into a place and go, okay, I'm going to make a Ken Karlewicz photo. I did it climbing trees. I want to do it with the drone. I don't want to go do something someone else has already done. That's why I threw that disclaimer in the beginning with that I own a shot, because everybody and their brother and myself included have shot that trestle, but it was a freebie. I was able to get that picture and another picture, which you're going to see coming up, all in one swoop. So that was a bonus. Why not get it? This is a cool spot right here. There's a really cool anecdote in the book, so I don't give it away free. Bill, I would show these pictures to Bill, and Bill Tabor, president of the Batten Kill, and I'd say, Bill, what can you tell me about this location here, right? And he told me a really cool story about when the train basically got stuck on the crossing from snow and ice, and without giving it away, it involved a trip to Greenwich to secure another RS3 to go down, but it's really involved, the story. So I can tell you that in the book, I was told by one person that, I don't want to read a whole bunch of stuff in the captions. I want to read the information in the book, and the caption should tell you what, blah, blah. No, the caption should be a little miniature story unto itself. And there's hundreds of those miniature stories that came from the people who lived along the Batten Kill. My buddy Shane Armstrong, who's born and raised in Shushan, who told me what every farm was and what they did. And same with Brooks. Brooks verified a lot of information and clarified tons of information for me. Now, this picture was put here. I almost thought of putting it at the beginning of the presentation. It's like, why do we do what we do? Why do we sit by the track, mesmerized at the vacancy, waiting for a train that may or may not show up before the sun goes down, right?
Right.
And this picture reminded me, obviously I modeled 1981. So this is Cobleskill, 1981. And this guy is standing there with his old dusty, beat up car. It's probably barely has any gas in it, but it's got enough gas to get down to the tracks so that he can stand there and wait for a train. Whether it comes or not doesn't matter. It's about being trackside. It's about being next to the rails and feeling, even if it's not even feeling what's there or not today, but imagining what was there in years past, right?
Absolutely.
I'm going well beyond my 30 seconds. Here we go.
That's all right.
So keeping it rolling. Now, this is a scene on my, quote, Cherry Valley branch, which that name was designated by my other friend, Brad Peterson. And when we were originally designing the railroad with Don Busing, who, actually is the mastermind of my model railroad and did most of the building, including laying the track and everything. He's just an exquisite designer, understands topography. But the whole idea was, as we were working on the track plan, Brad goes, what about if you put a switch here, and you can swing down along the other side of the aisle and come back and make a stub-ended yard, and you can make it the Cherry Valley branch. So this segment of my railroad, which is in Model Railroad Planning 2019, there's a whole story about it with the track plan and everything. This is by far the most interesting section. If I had to move and could only keep the Cherry Valley branch, this is just an exquisite little piece of branch line railroading. There's a feed mill, there's a freight house, and there's a team track. This guy looks like he's about ready to write them up for a safety violation for these tie plates, where the switchman's going to trip over them and fall onto the track. And
Right.
this RS3 was built by my late friend Bob Harp, and then we collaborated together on it. And then I did all the weathering on it to make it look like the 4116 that I'm seeing out there now. So it's not accurately weathered for 1981, but I don't care. I want to feel like I'm on the Batenkill even when I'm in my house, and this does it for me. And by the way, Ray, you have an open invitation anytime you want to.
I can't wait. I cannot wait to see it in person. This is
I
going to
would
be
love
phenomenal.
you to see this railroad. So here's the track work at Schoharie Junction. And someone asked me, my buddy Orrin said to me, is that track hand laid? I'm like, no. They actually, look at this. They actually look like spikes, right? You know, look at this. But they're all, so this track was put down with some kind of adhesive in the tube. You know, you use it like a caulking gun, and put the track down. Don put the track down, and I took a barbecue skewer while the adhesive was curing, and I started pushing down on the ties and pushing them this way and pushing them that way and just knocking them all kinds of crooked. And then I took oils and I dry brushed every tie and the rail to bring out all the tones that I had seen walking the right of way on the Batenkill. So the Batenkill and my model railroad have a very close affiliation, if you will. Here you go. Shout out to Mike Confalone for the inspiration. Oops, look like they broke this piece right here. Let's not look at that. Here's a pig flat that I did going through, and the pigs going through Cobleskill. But again, it's all the textures. I always say to my wife, I'm trying to create the same shrubbery that I have to like walk through and pick all those little Velcro things off your pants that stick all over you. I'm just trying to create a realistic texture that just looks right. And now, if you'll notice too, lighting is very important in my model railroad because I like shooting in great light. I want to run my model railroad in great light. So I want to emulate being out in early morning or late. So this backdrop photo, I had slept in my truck the night before. Actually was up in Washington County, realized that I left my tripod home, drove home 2 hours and 45 minutes just to get my tripod so that I could do the backdrop photos in the morning. And I shot this scene in center Cambridge so I could put it behind this section of the railroad.
Yeah, that's dedication to getting that right photo. That's amazing.
And you know, the perspective is also right. You'll notice there. This is like that thing you used to look at when you were a kid in the doctor's office. That magazine. I forget the name where you'd have to say what's wrong with the photo, but there's something missing from this feed plant, and people can post up and write about it later. But anyway,
or you can make it your secret. That's up to you.
Yeah. I have plans to finish this now that the Battenkill book is gone and done. Get back to my layout a little bit. Here's the active staging yard at Oneonta. Again, you know, I do a series of backdrop photos. I shoot one to the center, two to the left, two to the right, and I don't even stitch them in Photoshop. I just use blue tape and butt them together, and that's it. This is a car I'm really proud of. What is this? A Moloko car, right? But, you know, I believe this might even be the picture that's on their website and the same car number, but I copied the photo and I think it pretty much came out exact.
Beautiful.
So, you know, when I take my time, you know, I do enjoy very much. I enjoy weathering and detailing and textures a lot.
Okay, that car was awesome. But look at the end bumper. how much detail and the weathering and everything else. I mean, you've got a lot of good stuff going on here, Ken. This is pretty incredible.
It looks like it actually is probably a combination of the paint color being accurate, but also the dust that's accumulated. It looks like chunks of, peeling paint. Notice this. Can you see the cribbing in here buried in the side of the little? That's all like that. What is it? Who makes this? Chooch. But it's just covered and weathered just enough so you barely see it. But it looks like if you go to Cobleskill now, you'll see the remains of that cribbing in the side of the embankment there.
Absolutely.
Okay, now these were not even well, they might have been talked about, but the new RS3 chop nose, right? That came out. Who makes them? I've forgot. I've been away from modeling. Who made the new models that just came out? But this one is a Bob Harp special. So he did this whole chop thing here. He did everything on this. He painted it. He weathered it. And this is Joe Cameron's place up in Central Bridge. And as a kid, Joe used to, run across the house, and he'd hear the local coming. He'd run from one side. His mother would tell him, "Joe, stop running." He'd run out in the porch and wave to the crew, and they'd wave back. And now his wife, Bessie, hears the train coming and says, "Okay, Joe." Today she didn't need to put his sweater over him because it was warm enough. It was summer, but Joe's like, "Okay, take me out." And there's Joe's truck. He hasn't driven it in years. It's all grown all around it. But there he is watching. And the guy knows that Joe is not going to be raising his hand to wave. So he just trundles on by. But, again, the scenes that I want to, and my model railroad is not people have asked me, is that a diorama? Is that thing actually run? And then there's YouTube videos on it. You could find them on YouTube. Look me up. You'll see some cool videos, and you'll see Joe Cameron's place. But these are the greatest figures around. These little prizes with the wheelchair. Come on, and the wheelbarrow that he hasn't used. And I had a young lady that came to the house, and she goes, "Where is this?" She goes, I told her the story about Joe Cameron. She goes, "Can we go there? I'd like to meet him." I said, "It's not a real place, sweetie. It's just my imagination."
As we start to head towards the end of the show, and I know you got some photos here to follow up, and I want you to keep going as we're talking here. One may ask, around the Layout podcast, usually we talk to model railroaders, and we're still talking to a model railroader here with Ken Karlewicz, but we were focused on your rail photography, and there's some amazing amount of rail photography here. Tell us how the rail photography and the trackside experience has helped you in your model railroading journey.
All right, I can't pass over the late Jim Lafayette without acknowledging him.
Please.
Jim was a late conductor for the Delaware and Hudson. He ran on the slate picker. This is the engine house at Whitehall. I went to Jim's house. He agreed to come here with me. I interviewed him on camera, but there's a picture in the Batten Kill Country book where the nose of the shark is poked out of this building, and to see him standing here beside this crumbling infrastructure, Jim's the reason why the book got off to its start, because I interviewed him, and he actually told me about his life running on the slate picker, and that is the intro. The first chapter of the book is told through the memory and recollections of Jim Lafayette. So your question was, how does this all correlate with what's the question?
With model railroading. How is being a rail photographer and your experience trackside helped your model railroading, or how has it influenced your model railroading?
Well, I want the model railroad to look like something real, because, I don't want it to be a whole bunch of stuff thrown together that doesn't have any cohesion. Okay. I want it to be that, you look at it and go, oh, like people have commented when they come here, like, oh, this looks like the 80s. Very good. It's 1981 to be exact. Yeah. How do you know that? I could tell by the cars. quick story. Here, I'm over here with the drone. There's another little pond on the left side out of the picture, and I'm shooting the train coming around the bend. And then I realize, okay, now I'm going to try to get a twofer. So I'm backing up, and all of a sudden I see out of the corner of my eye this guy. Now I'm trying to back up fast enough and without running into wires or a telephone pole to get the boat in the right place before he touches the bushes, and I pulled it off. So another drone photo, which I use very, very frequently from low angles to document myself or people. I use it for portraits. Here's the Catskill trestle.
Beautiful.
Here's Bannerman's Castle on the Hudson River. Here's the Penn Central Heritage Unit. Okay, I got to keep moving. This is the Riverline Local, L040, LO40. And the Kingman brothers, Brian and Gary, were locally famous. And here they are on their last day running up the Newburgh branch, crossing over the Riverline on that trestle. Okay, here's Brian. And I'm looking at him thinking, I wonder what he's thinking as he's looking out at this track saying, I'm never coming up here again. After more than a decade, here they are leaving, coming back, long hood forward. This is him switching down at Blauvelt, right near my house. And I had fun. These guys allowed me to get close to railroaders on the river sub that I would have never been able to know. I'd bring them pastries and donuts and whatever, meatball sandwiches, and just, kind of look after them. So like they're stuck on the train all day. Here they come back down the branch, back down to the main line, and there's Gary opening the switch for the last time.
Yep.
I'm gonna fly through these. Check this out. So here's the last switch at Aloof Plastics down in Blauvelt. And look at this little Lonely Hearts Club of rail photographers out here to pay homage to these guys with this gorgeous 8400, which was Brian's favorite. Coal trains were plentiful this summer on the river sub because of a problem down in Pennsylvania where they had to detour these things. And here's a piggyback where I-157 is actually riding the rooftop of the rail train, which is tucked into the siding.
Oh, timing is everything. Holy mackerel. That's awesome.
It's pretty cool, right?
That's awesome.
Another coal train with the P&LE Heritage Unit.
Yeah.
What can you see my screen? What number are we at?
I can't see the numbers.
You can't see them.
No, we're to the Batten Kill, and let's go back a couple. Let's go to the Batten Kill. Let's talk about this book before we have to wrap things up here.
We'll talk about it, and I'll roll through these pictures. Okay.
All right. So, one of the things that you were able to do with all this amazing amount of photography, and of course your passion for and your relationship with the Batten Kill, is to create this beautiful book titled Batten Kill Country, Seasons of Change. Tell us about this book, and then tell us, hopefully, how somebody could get one in their hands if things go right.
Okay. Well, you can go to the Facebook page, which is called Batten Kill Book. You will find a link or several on the page. And right now, the first run of the book was sold out in 2 months. Gone. So if you'd like to get a copy, it is it's about 360 photographs, all color, hardcover with a beautiful colored dust jacket. You can go to Batten Kill Book, or you could type in Tiny.
Put that link back up, Paul.
Yeah, he's putting the link up, right?
Yep. So
tinyurl.com/BattenKillBook.
Yep.
Now, what we're doing is we're taking pre-orders for the book. And if we get enough pre-orders, we're going to do another run of the book this summer. Here's LO40 running out of Fort Montgomery Tunnel. And if we don't, you will put your money in through PayPal, reserve your copy. If We do not get enough orders. We will give you a charge back to your card. You will get an electronic refund. Here's a sample spread. That's a Rich Over, that's a Richard Yan photo, and that's a Tom Hildreth photo. But the quality is astounding. It is beautifully, the binding is stitched. This is a book that you can open and close a zillion times. It will never fail you. And here's my final picture that I just shot yesterday, blasting out of Haverstraw Tunnel on the Riversud, which is B118, with a empty ethanol train. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm
absolutely
excited talking about it.
Absolutely beautiful book capturing railroading along, within Washington County, a history of that railroading. Definitely a book any fan of short line railroading should have. Batten Kill Country, Seasons of Change, Ken Karlewicz, beautiful book. Get your pre-orders back in so that we can get another run of these books coming. So definitely check that out and get that.
And
on
all Alcos, cover to cover.
There you go. So we know we have some Alco fans out there. We know we have some short line fans out there. Beautiful book. You definitely want to add it to your collection. Ken, I'm going to pull you up on the big screen here to say thank you so much for sharing this amazing collection of photographs with us tonight.
Thank you.
If you're catching us on the replay, thank you for checking us out. If you are tuning in live, thank you again for spending your Sunday night with us. A little housekeeping here with the banners. If all of this information about our podcast can be found at aroundthelayout.com. If you like a Around the Layout podcast shirt, mug, t-shirt, whatever you want to get, sweatshirts, everything else, head to aroundthelayout.com/crew. If you are aroundthelayout.com/shop. Go ahead, Paul. You can run the banners. If you want to join our operating crew, which you saw win a awesome Athearn Genesis ACF 4600 cover hopper earlier on the show, aroundthelayout.com/crew. Thank you again to Athearn. You can check them out at athearn.com. And also want to plug, next month we will be at the Sydney RPM. You can learn more about the Sydney RPM on their website, sydneyrpm.com. Paul, put that link up one more time for the Batten Kill book. Make sure everybody sees that. tinyurl.com/battenkillbook. Head there, get your book on order so that you can have a beautiful coffee table discussion piece on the railroading history of Washington County. Ken Karlewicz, thank you so much for spending your Sunday night with us, putting all of those photographs together. I know you put a lot of work into that slideshow. I'm glad we got through, I think probably about 80% or 90% of it. So I'm glad we were able to do that. We'll have you back on the show because I'm sure there's a lot more for you to share, including a lot of your knowledge on photography. We'll dive into that again the next time. Until next time, everybody, have a great Sunday night. We will see you again next time. Take care.
Thank you.